Yeah.
Okay. So he's coming.
Yeah, he's right there.
All right. So last time we created a pretty simple app, right? It was chapter 1 of the Rails tutorial book. And our app, basically, the only thing that it did was just show a message on the browser, right? Do you guys have any questions about that app? It's fine. Okay. So this time, what we're going to do is we're going to create a more complicated app. This is going to be chapter 2 of the Rails tutorial book. And what the app is going to do is it's going to have a user's model and a micropost model. So we're going to have users and we're going to have microposts. And the microposts, you can think of them as like Twitter messages, right? So the idea is that there's going to be a table for users, and that table is going to have 3 pieces of information. It's going to have an ID. That identifies the user. So if you remember back to your Ruby class, you remember about types, right? So the ID is going to be of type integer, and it's just going to be a number. And every time we create a user, that number is going to go up. So the first user is going to have ID 1, second user is going to have ID 2, and so on. And then name is of type string, and that's just going to be the name of the user, like Juan or Christian. And email is going to be the email of the user, and that's also a string. So we're going to be storing that information, but this time we're going to be storing it in a database. I think last time you guys worked with YAML, right? Did you? 2 classes?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's going to be kind of the same concept, but instead of using YAML, Rails is going to be using a database. And then the second model that we have is microposts, and it has an ID. So each post also has an ID that it's incrementing, like the users. And then it's going to have another field called content. That's going to be what the user actually types in for their post. And it's going to be of type text. We haven't seen type text before. And you can think of text as just same thing as string. But that's a database type. So it's not a Ruby type. So that's why it's different. And then we also have another column called user_ID that's of type integer. And this column is going to tell us who posted that message. So for example, if here we have user ID 7, then user 7 posted that message. Any questions? Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a completely new app, right? I'm going to close all of these windows. Oh, by the way, like this is the app that you're going to be working on for Tuesday. So this is your actual first submission that you're going to be doing is just going through this app, but without, try to do it on your own. Just don't copy and paste the code. All right, so you see that right now I'm in the Hello app folder, right? So I should go up 1 level. I don't want my new app to be inside an already existing app, right? So once I'm here, you see that master is gone from the prompt, and that's because I'm not in a Git repository anymore. So now I'm going to create a new Rails application, Rails new. and then toy app. So it's going to try to go through the same process of installing gems, creating our database, etc. You probably noticed that this time it went a lot faster, and that's because the first time it was installing a whole bunch of gems, and this time all those gems are already installed. Okay, so now I'm going to go inside the directory toy app, and now you can see that there's a master there. Right? So just like always, I'm going to go to GitHub, and then I'm going to turn in GitHub, or not my directory, I'm sorry, my repository. So new repository, and then toy app, public. Okay, create a repository. And then over here, I want to commit first everything. So if I do git status, you can see that everything's in red, and it gives me the message untracked files. So I haven't committed any of those files. Those are all the files. So if I do git add dot, and then git status, you can see that you have all of those files that are ready to be committed. And git commit -m, first commit, and git status shows me that everything's committed. All right, so I did my first commit, and now I'm going to push it to GitHub. So for that, I'm just going to copy the first line to add the remote repository. And then the second line is git push -u origin master. So git push -u origin master. And if I refresh here, you see that there's all my code, right? So this is, we did this last time twice. So this is just kind of a reminder. Again, questions? Okay. And by the way, let me know if I'm going too fast or if I need to slow down. Or if I'm going too slow, tell me to speed up. Too fast, okay. I'll wait for you guys to catch up to that point.
So I need the new repository, and I go to the main line and say git init, right?
We don't have to do git init, yeah, because we did Rails new, and when you create a new Rails application, it does git init for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then what do I do in the command line? Just git add, period.
Yep.
And after that, I do git commit /m.
But it's also important to know what like each one is doing, so that
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to memorize it.
Okay.
So like get add dot, remember dot is this directory.
Yeah.
So you're saying all the changes I've made, put them on like a table that I would have it ready to be saved at some point. So you're not saving, that's why it's called staging. You have changes that you're interested in saving at some point. And then when you do git commit, you're taking those files and actually saving them. So this is
For the git commit m, what was the message?
I put first commit. Yeah. Yeah, like Jorge said, it makes it easier to remember if you understand what the command is doing. So git add just says I'm gonna put this stuff here and get it ready to commit, and then git commit actually commits it and saves it to the repository. Any other questions? Yeah.
It's not working for me. I'm also missing like the master thing.
Let's see. So you go to the workspace directory. So you want to see the tool.
Oh.
All right, so we're good? All right. So that's that. And you're going to be doing this a lot, so you're going to get a lot of practice. Once this class is over, you're going to do it with your eyes closed. Okay, so we have our app in GitHub. So now it's the new stuff. So we want to create this model in Rails. And so we're going to use something special in Rails called scaffolding. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us the ability to go in and add a user. It's going to give us interface on our browser to add a user, to update a user, to delete a user, to do all those operations. And together, all those operations we give it the name of CRUD, C-R-U-D. And CRUD stands for create, remove, create, what does R stand for?
I always forget that one too. Create, read.
Okay, create, read, update, and delete. So we're gonna be able to do all those 4 operations. And if you think about it, those are pretty much, with those 4 operations, create, read, update, and delete. Think about any web application that you use, pretty much any application that you use, and you're gonna see those 4 operations. Like if you go to do an email, like that's kind of like a create, right? And if you go put it in the trash, that's a delete. If you want to read the email, that's a show. And if you want to, you can't really update an email. So not everything has all those 4, right? But let's say that a Facebook post that you can update in your Facebook post. So that has all 4 operations. You go to post, you have the create, you go to update your post, that's the update, and then you can delete your post, right? So it has all those 4 operations. So when the next time you find yourself using some web application, think about, oh, that's a create, or that's an update, delete, a show, and you'll start to see that these 4 operations are used everywhere, right? And so once we're able to do this, then we can just chain them in more complicated ways to give a better user experience, right? It's not going to look, too amazing, but I think we'll learn a lot. So the command to do that is Rails, and then generate. So by the way, Rails is pretty much the command to anything you're going to do with Rails is going to start with Rails, and then after Rails, we're going to have some word that it's going to do something. So the first one we saw was Rails new, right? That created a new project, a new Rails project for us. This is the second one we're seeing, Rails generate. And this generate is going to generate a new model for us. So Rails generate, and then scaffold. So here we're telling the generate action in Rails that we're generating a scaffold. There's a few other things that we can generate in Rails, and we're gonna see those later on. Now, what generate does is that it's gonna create a whole bunch of code for us. So it's generating code, and then depending on what we put there, it's gonna generate different kinds of code. So scaffold is a very special one that basically generates a lot of stuff for you. It's the one that generates the most code. So scaffold, and then user. So this for Word is now we're telling it what to name the scaffold that we're generating. So we're going to generate a user, and then later on we're going to generate a micropost. So just let me check something. This is the part that I never remember how to do that. So here's the command. So the user, and then we have these things which are going to be the columns in our table. So the pieces of information that this model is going to have. So here, for example, we have a user is going to have a name of type string and an email of type string, and then the colon between the two is what tells you. So the first you have the name of the field, and then the type of the field. Okay, so let's see, let's go back here. Name colon string, and then email colon string. I haven't pressed enter yet. Okay, it looks good. Okay, so that was a lot of text. It just came up. And if we go up, you're going to see stuff like these green lines are interesting. It says create, and then it has some file name. So these are all, every time you see a create, these are new files that Rails is creating for you. And there's a whole bunch of code in those files. So we don't have to write all that code, and it's doing a lot of work for us to make it easy for us. Any questions? Yeah. Oh, you had a question? Oh, sorry. All right. So now the next thing we want to do is we want to do Rails and then db colon migrate. So that's the third Rails command seeing in the class.
What does this do?
That's the brings over the database.
So yeah, so this when we created, when we did the scaffolding and we told Rails that we're creating a user with two columns, type of one type string and then the other one of type string, Rails just creates a file, specifies, okay, that's what you want me to create. But the structure of the database is not actually created at that point. Then later on, you have to tell Rails, okay, create that structure in the database. And that's what this command does.
Like the files are the recipe as to how the database is going to look like. And then when you migrate, you're cooking that plate so that the database is ready.
Yep. So hit enter. All right, so you can see that one of the things that it says right here, it says create table, and then in parentheses, users, right? So that's when it actually creates the table to the database. Before, when we did the scaffolding, this is the file. We don't have to. We'll go into more detail later on, but this is the file that tells later on Rails how to create that table. Okay. Right. So that's what we did that. So now the next thing is that's pretty much it. That should be it. Now we should be able to create users and perform those 4 operations. We should be able to perform those 4 operations with a browser. But first, we have to start the Rails server. So you just do Rails and then server. So I guess technically, we saw that command as well. We also saw the server command. Let's see, I think I have it running already. Yeah, I already have it running. So let me quit that. You might have it running or you might not have it running. But if you see an error like this that says address already in use, right here, then that means that you already have a Rails server running, and so you have to close that one. So let me start it again. Okay, it looks like it was started successfully. So now click on share and then click here and then an application and then open. And then you're going to see this, all right? All right, so the way that the URLs for our user stuff, Rails does it in a very special way. And so in order to be able to do those 4 operations for our users, we're going to add something to our URL. Like your URL is probably going to be different than mine, but just take the same URL and then add /users. And then you should see something like this. So you should see users, name and email, and then there's here a link for a new user. So if I click on that link, I get a little form that gives me a name and an email, and then a create user button. So I'm going to test it. So let's see, I write my name, Ramiro, and then my email is that. So click on create user. It says user was successfully created. And here goes my name and my email address. So I can use the back button, and you see that I'm listed there as a user. So you saw that we're able to create a user now, right? So that's the C. And then the R for reading, I can click on this link that says show, and it just shows me information, right? So that's not very interesting, right? Because I have all the information here. But it's just what scaffolding does. All right, so then I can also click on edit, and it brings me back to that little form. And so I can change the name, so I can add my last name, and then click on update user. And it takes me back here. So then I can go back, and you can see that the information is updated, right? And then I can also click on destroy, and it gives me a little message that says, are you sure? So I can, what's that?
It's funny, like, destroy on the thing. Most things would say delete or remove, it's like destroy.
Obliterate.
Yeah. So I can, are you sure? I said, okay. And then now there's no users, right? So that's the 4 operations: create, read, update, and destroy, or delete, whichever one you prefer. So any questions?
That's a lot less than Sinatra.
It's it did a lot of stuff magically with that from my end. They would scaffold here.
It's just so easy, so simple.
Yeah.
Because you're not recording any of this stuff, right?
We're not coding it yet. But this is, the thing is that this is very restrictive, right? So
Right.
it's only gonna look like this. And if you wanna add more, more complicated stuff,
Yeah.
then you're gonna have to go in there and code it.
Creates, so I would look at that more as a model as to how the shape of your application is gonna look like for the Rails. Because the scaffolding also generate a bunch of files that you might not necessarily use. But it's just, it takes a little bit to get used to what does what. And so this first step is just to get an app running and see how it works.
When they say scaffold, the scaffold, they're gonna be like the base stuff, right?
Yeah, I guess they would mean, yeah, kind of like when you're building a building and then you put, yeah.
Structure that should build stuff, basically.
Yep. So you might use this if you're like trying to get something out like really quick, and it's just going to be like a proof of concept, where you know that eventually you're gonna go back and rewrite it in a better way,
Yeah.
but you really want to get it out. So you might use something like this, or also if you're learning, for example, like you just want to write. Because the thing is that from now on, the remaining of the class, we're going to be learning what scaffolding is actually doing, what files it's creating, why it's creating those files, and how that's working. And we're going to be learning about that so that then we create something better than what scaffolding would do.
Right. Because I'm sitting here going, yes. I have to program all that stuff.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, so then we're gonna create the next model, the micropost. Yeah. So the micropost, is the same, but it has content and user ID. So before we go there though, if you look at this, we did Rails generate scaffold user, and then we did name and email as the properties that we gave to the user. But over here, we wanted name, email, but we didn't do ID, right? So the thing that happened, we didn't forget, but what happens is that Rails automatically creates an ID for any model that you create. So you don't have to explicitly add ID. It's automatically done for you. Yeah. And the ID automatically increases every time you create a new user.
Can you show the ID?
Yeah. So let me create a new user. Or I guess I'll create the same one. All right. So do you see, well, let me click on this. Do you see the URL says 2? So that's the idea.
Wait, though.
So it
That
says,
means it's still counting the first time you did it?
yep, like, so it just, think about that, it keeps track of, somewhere else it wrote 1.
Yeah.
And then, so somewhere else it keeps track of the next ID that it should give to the next user that's created. Yep.
And you don't wanna just delete it, forget about it.
I don't know, I kind of like the idea. of
Well, yeah,
if you delete
but in
someone,
this world, you
have
can't-
that new number.
That new ID or that old
have
ID.
That old ID.
Yeah.
Not just a vacant.
Yeah, it's just easier to not have to then say, okay, that let me look through and see if somebody has this ID. Yeah.
Who does that? Rails or the database?
The database.
The database does it?
So yeah, that's the ID. So if I create another user, let's do Jorge Ramirez. Jorge at codethedream.org. So that's user ID 3, right? And you can see that now there's 2 users listed there, right?
What happens if you do the same thing?
You can, right? Because we haven't done any checks on that. So let me add the same exact information. And it lets me do it. So now there's two identical users with the same name, but they're gonna have different IDs. So this one has ID 4, and this one has ID 2. Any other questions? Okay. So then let's create the next model. So I'm gonna leave that open, and I'm gonna click here on this plus and do new terminal, so that my Rails server is running on this terminal right here, and then over here I can type in my Rails commands. So I'm in workspace, and so I have to go into the toy app in order to do that. Get status, okay. All right, before I go on though and create the next model, I'm gonna commit the changes that I made. I'm gonna commit them to Git. So I'm gonna do git add dot. So I'm just adding everything, and then doing git status. You can see that it's all green. And git add I get disconnected from the internet, maybe. I think I might have gotten disconnected. All right, there we go. It looks like we're back. Let's see if the video is still up. Okay, it looks like we're up. Okay, so I'm gonna do git commit -m and then added user. Okay. And then after that, I'm going to do git push. That's going to push it to GitHub. Just git push this time. Yeah. As last time when we did -u, that we were telling it to save it so that we didn't have to do that again.
Why didn't we have to do the git remote add?
Because that git remote add origin is we're just adding a link to GitHub, and then that link gets saved, and it's always pointing, or local Git repository is always pointing from then on to GitHub.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So you only have to do that the first time that you're going to be uploading to GitHub.
Per application.
Per application. Yep. Per, I would say, yeah, I would say that it would be more proper to say per Git repository.
Yeah.
Yeah. Typically, our applications are going to be Git repositories, right? But you can have a case where it's just its own separate Git repository.
When we use Git, just to save our work, right?
Mhm.
Okay, just want to make sure there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a difference between Git and GitHub. Git is this little program that's running that we're typing in the commands. And then GitHub is just this website.
Where you save this stuff.
Where you can see it, and it has a nice interface and all that.
I mean, technically, it is saved in your computer locally.
Yeah.
So it's just it's the uploading to the cloud and GitHub that you do.
All right, so then we're going to do the next model, which is the microposts. So Rails, generate scaffold, and then micropost. And one thing that I didn't mention before is that you notice that I capitalized the U last time in user, and this time I'm capitalizing the M in micropost. That's just the convention that we use for models. So the first letter is capitalized. So if I had another model called person, then the P would be capitalized. Yep.
Did you say that models are like classes?
Yeah, so a model is, in Rails, a model is a class plus a table, plus a controller and a whole bunch of stuff.
No, it's other, I'm just listening.
Yeah, so it's gonna start to make more sense later. But I'm throwing a lot of vocabulary at you right now, and it feels probably overwhelming. But I just want you to start hearing these words too, so that.
I think like maybe an easy way would be a model is something that you can CRUD, right?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yep.
So that's a model.
Yep. And that's the abstract concept of a model, and then how it's done in Rails. That's what we're going to be learning about. Okay, so microposts, and then the columns are content, which is of type string, and then user ID, which is of type integer. It has two columns, and then so I'm going to press enter. And you saw that it generated a whole bunch of files again. So then I'm gonna, now that generated my recipe for creating my database table, but my database has not been, or my table has not been created in the database. So I have to run the command Rails db : migrate. And then that should generate that's going to create my table in the database. So then I already have my app open over here. And instead of, I'm going to change the URL from users to micro posts. Yep. But it's, you know, it's the same thing. The only difference is that it changed it from user to micro posts. And then you see that it has two fields, content and user. So I'm going to do new micro post, and it gives me two columns. It gives me a content and it gives me a user.
Has association, like you did with the generate thing.
No, it's just, yeah, it didn't do it. Why?
No, it's just like it was just interesting.
It just,
If you click on that, it will show you users.
no, it's of type integer. So it's just,
Okay, I got it. I was like, what? I thought it would show you the users of the drop
Yeah.
down. Like, so what just happened? Okay.
That'd be cool.
yeah. So yeah, so let's say that I have, let's go back to the users over here. So Jorge, he's, if I click on him, he's user ID 3, right? So I'm gonna go to micro posts. I'm gonna pretend that I'm him, and I'm gonna create a post. So
Look at that tweet.
a dank tweet, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yes.
So let's see, Ruby rocks. So here's user 3, right? So I'm gonna put 3 for user and create the micro post. So there, it created it. If I go back, you see the micro posts, right? So it's just the same thing, but with micro posts, right? Questions? All right, so then I'm gonna go back here, and I'm going to, since I already added another feature, I'm going to do the same thing of doing git add dot, and then git commit dash m add micropost, and then git push. So you can see that if you're working on a project later on, you want to get in the habit of committing as much as possible. Because the more you commit, the easier is going to be able to find places where you made a mistake later on. You can just go back to those commits. Okay. Any questions?
So once you created the micro post, what did you do? Did a commit the message again?
Yeah, so I just did git add dot. You did that part? And then git commit dash m with the message. Add micro posts. Posts. I should have done post. I did micro posts. But, yeah, I mean, that's just a message for other people to see. So that's not going to, it's still going to work if you do add micro posts.
And then you do push.
Yeah, git push.
Let's order pizza.
What's that?
I said, let's order pizza.
You're hungry?
Those generate pizza.
Yes, but it's only We will have the technology soon.
All right, so let's see. We're about halfway done. If you guys want to take a break now, 5-minute break, or we can continue. You guys want to continue or get some water or something like that? Oh, there we go.
I would agree with that. I got my seat with me.
You are?
I got my seat with me.
Sometimes, at least in the other American Underground, sometimes they have like a business meeting. Then they brought food, and then they just leave it out for people.
This first one there. No rain.
I'm not gonna take any notes to do that. I will look at it.
Have you messed with action cable at all?
I haven't had time.
Yeah,
Have you?
very little. Like same, I haven't had time. I want to add it to families together at some point. So like, the volunteer and the writer can like chat with each other.
That would be cool. Yeah.
Calling that like I can edit. So I told you about the autocomplete, right?
Mhm.
The address. And so I went to this talk. Like one of the talks in RailsConf was about. It was called "The Relentless Pursuit of RESTful," and essentially it was advocating about making just controllers for everything, so that all of your controllers, like none of your controllers have any custom actions. So, and like to me it was just like, what? Because like there will be some models that like will not, or some controllers that will not have a model that's safe to a database. So I did that for the routes have arrival times. So I created an arrival controller that just either updates or creates an arrival time on a route. And it makes total sense because like now it removes the logic from the route controller. and it has its own route, and it doesn't save, it just updates the arrival time on a given request.
It's much cleaner.
Yeah, it is much cleaner, and yeah, so like now the routes control, like it just cleans up all the controllers, they look nicer.
And your routes too, like you don't have like extra routes
Right,
in your
yeah,
routes file.
right. It's a cool, like once they put it on YouTube, I'll send you a link.
Okay. Yeah, she's still finding food.
She went to order pizza.
So you guys are studying computer science,
Computer program.
computer program? Is that different than computer science at Wake Tech? They just
No,
go,
program's just called computer programming. It's like computer science.
I don't think it's different, I just think that, maybe in computer science, you learn a little bit more theory and application.
They focus more on the actual learning kind of than the like algorithms and data systems.
okay.
With computer programming. At least my experience has only been application. You know, Java, material, code.
Yeah.
So you understand that, right? That's Java? Is that Java?
Yeah.
Yeah.
System out good knowledge. Yeah.
This was. Well, I understand it. I just don't know where, like, I guess int is when you set this, the type, right?
So that's a photo. In Java, that's set. You can only use an integer there. So it's 4 int x equals 1. So
Right.
that's what it's going to allow you to basically run through whatever it is that you want to loop through. And then you say, as long as x is less than or equal to 100,
Right.
you perform whatever is inside the for loop. Once you're finished, you pre-increase x by 1.
Right.
Yeah.
But where is like, I thought it was static type. Is Java static type?
Yeah. So the int is telling you the type of x.
Yeah.
Okay. What is,
Oh, and then another way is like args. That's one parameter. So the type of args is a string array.
Yeah. But see that right there, that's the main.
so does it need a comma between or?
No, because you have every argument is going to have the type and then the name of the argument, comma, type, name of the argument. So every time you're defining a variable, you're gonna specify the type of that variable in front. You have the type in front, and then the name of the variable.
Okay, and then equals whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But right there, that's main, so that will never change.
The type for your main method, you always want string args.
String or argument.
Okay, that'll take me a second.
Yeah.
I mean, I get everything except like, so is it taking 3 arguments?
It's taking one argument. Args is the name of the variable,
Mhm.
and then the type of that argument should be a string array. The square brackets means an array of that type.
Yeah.
So an array of type string. So the array has everything in the array is of the same type. It is of type string.
Okay, alright, so it's 2 types for the args variable.
Well, it's considered one type. It's an array of type string
so the array-
is one type.
Yeah, you remember how I had trouble with Ruby because it's so dynamic. Like you can in an array you can have multiple types,
Java, you only
If
have
you
one
look at
type.
Java, it's either a string array or
Okay,
integer array, you cannot change it.
okay.
Yeah,
So, yeah, an array of just one type of thing.
one type, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
All right, cool. So, all right. So the next thing we want to do is we're actually going to modify our little scaffolding application a little bit. And what I want to do is right here when I click on show. Well, let me go back. If I click on show right here, it just shows me name Jorge and then email. Sorry.
Do you want to show the posts of that person name?
Yeah. So when I click on show, I want to see also all the posts that Jorge has made. So in order to do that, I'm going to go here in my toy app folder and click on app. Now, all that scaffolding, that scaffolding, the two scaffolding commands that we did, created two files in our models, inside models. So it's toy app models, and then you see that we have a file called micropost.rb and another one called user.rb. So I'm going to open up the user.rb file, and then you can see that it's just defining class user, and then extends application record, and then end. You guys see this right here, the syntax?
So that little less than means extends.
So what this is saying is that there's somewhere else in some other file, there's a class called application record. And this user class is extending this class. And so that means that this user class is going to have all the methods that this application record class has. So that, what's that?
I said it's called here.
Yeah, that's called inheritance. But the nice thing in Rails is that Rails provides a lot of code, and they wrote a lot of code to load things from the database, save things from the database. And so we don't have to write any of that code. That's already done for us. And so we can just use those methods in the user class. All right. So then now what we want to tie a user to the microposts that he has created. And in Rails, they provide a method called the hasMany method. So I'm going to call it right here, hasMany. And then I'm going to pass it a symbol, and the symbol is going to be microposts. No, that's a good point. The capital gets reserved only for the class. Everything else is going to be lowercase.
So would you say that micropost, would that be like the object?
This right here,
Yeah, that microposts.
that's just a symbol.
It doesn't matter what name it has.
It does matter. It does matter. But a symbol, you can make it whatever you want, right? It's just a symbol. But what we pass, the symbol that we pass to this method, hasMany, does matter.
Oh,
Yeah. So in normal Ruby, like we could have written, something like that symbol, and that's legal Ruby. That's legal Ruby, but it will break in Rails because Rails is expecting that symbol to be something specific.
It's looking for some
So.
Yeah.
So I guess that was my question. And I'm sorry, because I hear. I don't know. So you're writing micro posts.
It should be my.
That text, is it just text, or is it actually referencing micro posts?
It's technically not referencing micropost. It's just a convention that, so let's see.
Remember, what type of thing is that in Ruby?
I understand that that's a symbol, right?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just simple, so like I will understand it. So it's not referencing anything.
Right, it's not
But you
referencing.
want it to be micro posts.
Yes.
Because it matters.
It does.
Okay, that's all.
Also remember that has many is a method. And so the has many method is coming from
What
where?
about the R? It has to have the S on the end?
Yes,
Oh,
The only reason why I'm asking is because he said you're not being that. So.
Right, it is, yeah.
yeah, good. It's good to ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see in a minute why it matters. And the reason why it matters is because we have a model called micropost, right? So what this method has many is going to do is it's going to try to load objects of type micropost. And the has many assumes that there are many microposts. So this method has many is going to create a method in our user model called microposts with an S at the end. That's going to load from the database all the microposts for that user with that user ID.
We don't have to code any of that.
Right, we don't have to code any of that.
You just say it has many micro posts.
Yep, That's the magic. The problem is that, the question that you were asking is that it's so much magic going on here that it's hard to understand what's actually happening. So that we're gonna keep seeing this again and again to try to get a better understanding of what's going on behind the magic.
Will we ever actually get into the inside?
No. No, you probably will never get into the inside, but sometimes you need to do more complicated this is called a relationship.
Right.
And so sometimes you need to do more complicated relationships, and you need to understand what the magic is doing in order to be able to create those complicated relationships.
And so see, right now, I'm like super confused, not even the material itself, but the class itself. So like, is it a coding class or what?
It
You know
is,
what I mean?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Because it's like, I've hard coded stuff like this, and they taught it to me, but now I just have to put that and I'm good to go. Right?
oh, you're talking about the class this class in general?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a coding class. But you're seeing, I guess the reason you're seeing this is to first to see what's possible to do in Rails. And then later on, we're going to be using all of this code that has been written for you to generate that HTML for a whole bunch of other stuff.
See, what blows me away is the fact that they've given it to you. It's not that egregious.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I mean, like, this is just scratching the surface.
Yeah, that's why I'm going like, what is
Yeah. But it's not going to be a class where we learn loops and
the actual
of the language.
language itself.
Yeah. This is more of a class, very, very applied, right? Where we because we're also going to learn HTML and then JavaScript. So the goal of the class is to learn how to apply code that other people have written to create something useful, something that does something useful. Yeah. So it has, part of it is coding, but there's also big components that are not coding. Mhm. All right, so that's, let me save that. Don't forget to save. That's a common bug. All right, so we have that. Now we're gonna open up another file. So I'm collapsing that directory and then clicking here on the views directory. And then I'm gonna click on the users and then click on open up show.html.erb. I'm sorry?
Oh, no. I was thinking, I said, if we can add the symbol here for the micropost, but that's probably wrong.
Yeah, well, this is where we're gonna add a loop. We're gonna add a loop to show all the posts for that user. But yeah. All right, so this, you haven't seen this before, right? But how many of you know a little bit of HTML? Okay, seen it. Okay, so at least if you've seen it, you can kind of get a feel for it. This looks like HTML. Like there's a P open tag and a P close tag, strong and strong. So this is HTML-ish, right? But then there's other stuff right here, like this less than % equals. Exactly. Yep. So this file, you see that the name of the file, the extension is ERB, and that stands for embedded Ruby. So embedded, if you think about embedded, means that like you have something and then in the middle you have something embedded, right? So this is HTML. Well, this is just, you can think of it as just a text file, or I guess you can think of it as an HTML file because it has .html. So you can think of this as an HTML file that has embedded in it Ruby code. And that Ruby code, we're going to use it because those little pieces where that Ruby code is embedded, that's going to be the pieces of our HTML that are going to be changing. And that's why, for example, right here we have add user.name, and add user is a model that has the name. So it could be Jorge or it could be Ramiro. And so what Rails is doing is that it's going to change this little snippet. It's going to change it, replace that with what this piece of Ruby evaluates to, and it's going to insert that there as a string.
I have a question.
Sure.
You want to put like a while loop in for if someone's putting in the same in that's already in the database, would you put it here or in the controller?
The only thing that you want to put here in a view is the things that you want to display to the user. So if you
I was thinking why I was thinking maybe here is because sometimes I like to put in my while loop like a statement like this name is already taken, please put a different username or a different name into the system, different email into the system.
So like an error message, right? You want to put an error message. Yeah, that's where you would put code here in this view to display error messages. Cool. So just like, you see, just like we have user.name, that's an instance variable, add user is an instance variable, and then name is a method, right? We're calling dot and then the method. So that's a pretty simple piece of Ruby, right? So I'm gonna add here at the bottom percent, and then less than percent specifies that Ruby is coming after this. So less than percent, and then at user dot microposts. So I'm calling the micropost method on user, and then this method is going to return an array with all the microposts that belong to that user. Yep.
You don't need the equal sign?
Let's see. I don't remember.
You do a loop?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. So the equal sign means evaluate the Ruby code and then insert the result of the Ruby code, insert it here. Without the equal sign, just means evaluate the Ruby code and don't insert anything there. So user.micropost and then .each for a loop using the .each method, right? So .each do, and then micro post, and then I'm going to close my ERB embed with a percent greater than, and then I'm going to open it another Ruby, and then I'm going to close it with the percent equals, and that's the end. So you see that I have a loop, but I have over here this is a piece of Ruby, and then that's the end. It's inside another embed. Okay. And then this right here in line 14, I can just put HTML there. Because that between the line 14, between 13 and 15, that's not Ruby. That just can be HTML. And so what's going to happen is this loop is just going to repeat anything, all the HTML inside here. It's just going to repeat it for every micro post. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do P. And then in here, I'm going to add some more embedded Ruby. And then this time I am going to add the equals. And then micro post dot content. And then close it. So that's going to be repeated multiple times. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here to my Toy app and do refresh. And you see that the first post is there, Ruby Rocks, right? So if I go and add another micro post, so go to the URL micro posts, new micro post, and let's say, what else would you want to post? Jorge?
So many things. Life is wonderful.
Life is Wonderful. User 3, create micropost. And then I'm going to go to users and show. You see that now it has that other micropost, right? So any micropost that you add is going to be displayed here. And we're just repeating that. We're just going through that loop, right? Yeah.
Would you mind going back to Cloud 9 into the user RV, to the RV? Was there an underscore there?
Yeah, between the,
Oh, okay.
yep. Yep. Yeah.
Did you go back to the show Beach Canal area?
Okay, was it users? Where we added the user tag?
You're asking about the URL?
Yeah.
Yeah, /users.
This is awesome.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to show Symmetric first, because it's like, normally it feels a lot being done by hand.
Yeah.
So it gives you an appreciation of like what Rails is doing for you.
Without you having to.
It's like not very like
It's great.
Yep, exactly. All right, any other questions? All right, so that's a big overview. You have kind of you're standing right now on top of a hill and looking at what we're going to be learning for a big portion of the class. And this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be modifying these views. Well, first of all, we're going to be thinking about when we're creating our application, an application that we're creating, we're going to be thinking about what models to create. For example, here we saw the user model and the micropost model. So we're going to be thinking about, okay, for my application, what models would I need to create? What fields would each of my models need? And then you're going to create those models, and then you're going to modify some of these views to make it easier for the user to see, to display certain information, to do those kinds of things. Questions? All right. So let's see, I'm going to close these three files, or those two files. Now, one thing that you should have you guys, when you go to a site, do you know how to look at the source code for the HTML for a site?
Inspect.
Inspect, yeah. Yeah, so if you in Windows or non-Mac,
Something,
oh, you did something wrong?
because it doesn't show the post. I mean, it shows the post in the micropost, but not with the name. Right?
Create the post.
Yeah, I have 2 posts. You can see them over in the micropost. They don't.
Because they're on the register too.
Oh, and it has 2 versions. See, that's the problem. That's why we have to stop the same name being introduced before I forgot.
So,
Oh, wait, it's showing this.
yeah, so it's actually showing the micropost class. So what is the attribute of micropost?
Content.
Content.
Let's see. Okay.
Okay. So yeah, in Windows, in Chrome, it's Control Shift I, and then you'll see this. These are called the developer tools, and we're going to be using them a lot. So if you go here to click here on this thing that says select an element in the page to inspect it, it's going to take you to the HTML. So you can see there's the HTML tag, there's the body, and all that other stuff. So if I click on show, another way that I can see the HTML is by right-clicking and then clicking on View Page Source. So this is the HTML Rails generated. So let's go back to our show.html.erb, and that's the HTML that the scaffolding generated for us, right? So we have a P, this links for edit and back. And over here in our HTML, we also have that P and then links, right? But then we have this other stuff like HTML, head, title, this stuff. So all of that is generated somewhere else. So if you click on app and then views, and you see that there's a folder called layouts, and then open up a file called application.html.erb. So this is where all of that stuff was generated. And then this piece right here, yield, is just telling Rails to insert this show.html, insert it there. So in Rails, we have a whole bunch of ERB files to help us generate just one HTML document. And basically Rails is saying, okay, I'm going to use this little ERB file to generate this piece of HTML. I'm going to use this other ERB file to generate another piece of HTML, all together into one big HTML document, and then send that back to the browser. So for example, right here, hello, and save it. You can see that it says hello, right? But if I click on back, it also says hello, right? So this ERB file, this application.html ERB file, is used for in every page that you're trying to generate. So that's why it's called layouts, because it's like you have your page is all the HTML that decorates like the header and the footer of your page, and then inside you have the content that's going to be changing, but the header and the footer shouldn't really be changing. Yep.
Would you use this area to determine the margins or borders, or would that be more of a CSS?
That would be more of a CSS thing. Yeah. Yep. All right. So one piece of I guess this class is a lot about using code that somebody else wrote. And last class, you guys just focus on Ruby, right? But this class is just use code that somebody else wrote. So for that, we're going to use a lot a framework called Bootstrap. So if you go to the Bootstrap, and so this is CSS code that somebody else wrote for us, and this CSS code is to add a little bit better styling to our application. Because you were talking about the margins and the borders and all of that, right? And
CSS and somewhere else. I mean, that's cool. I just thought I was wondering if we're going to do like a whole class where we're just writing CSS.
oh, we're gonna touch CSS here and there a little bit.
Well, that makes sense. I guess you got to make that too.
Yeah. Then I sent a suggestion for. I think there's a class on Udacity. I think it's Udacity that goes more in depth about CSS. There's also a good YouTube channel called, I think it's called Dev Tips, I think. And he's like this guy that's like a genius when it comes to CSS. See, Dev Tips. Yeah, the channel is called Dev Tips, and he has a whole bunch of CSS stuff. Some of that stuff also like goes beyond my head. Yep. But the cool thing about Bootstrap is that you don't have to really know a lot of CSS to make your page look pretty nice. Let's go to getbootstrap.com. So let's go to CSS. So you can see that, let's see. Like for example, tables. Like with CSS, you can pretty quickly make your tables look like that. Or let's go to buttons. So CSS gives you the styling to make buttons look like that. If you didn't have CSS, you could make your buttons look like that. You would just have to code each one of them individually, each style. So this is a little bit faster to make your site look nice. And so we're gonna use it. But first, I have to add Bootstrap to my application, right? So if you go to bootstrapcdn.com, you're gonna find the links to the CSS file to add Bootstrap. So if you click that drop down and then click the HTML and copy that. And then in your layout, after this CSRF meta tags, line 6, just paste that there. You can tab it so that it's the same indentation level. It looks nice. And save. And then hit refresh. So it looks a little bit different, right? It has different styling. So now when our page loads, it's loading that CSS file, that styling file, and then it's applying that style to all of our elements. Does everyone understand what CSS is doing? Like I guess let's ask the question, like, how much experience or how comfortable do you guys feel with CSS? Like, I guess, Christian, you can go first.
How much experience have I had in CSS? I just looked up what CSS stands for.
Okay.
Not very much.
Okay. What about you?
No experience.
No experience. And you?
I have like moderate experience with HTML and CSS just from doing like website builders, and also mentioning back in the day where you had to format your posts in order for them to look cool on social media, otherwise it just looked like a blog.
Okay. Cool. All right. So if there's a topic that I mentioned and then you're like, oh, we haven't seen this before, just let me know and we can talk a little bit more in depth about it.
The Udacity, I didn't complete yet. The Udacity course with on the HTML, CSS is pretty helpful for just getting the gist of what's going on the page. Really take tools
And which site?
on the Udacity.
Udacity.
I think Grace, either Grace or Dan sends us a link a while back to.
Yeah, that's the one. If you want to learn more about CSS, take that course. I think it's like you can go over in probably 2 weeks or something. It's in
It's a little like kind of informative thing on HTML, CSS, the basics.
You should have gotten it in an email. But if not, like I can post.
Like explaining that all made up of boxes, everything that you put on the website is boxes, and then once you understand the structure and how to arrange boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is very useful to know HTML and CSS when you're working with Rails, to get a better understanding of what's happening in the browser. And because remember that Rails is just generating a whole bunch of HTML and then sending it to the browser, and then the browser is taking that HTML, which are really just instructions, taking that HTML and then generating a page for the user.
And it's also good to know that the browsers themselves come with some basic CSS rules, so they apply their own kind of rules. You don't tell them that you want something to look a certain way. That's why it looks okay when you put it up there, even though it doesn't look beautiful. But the reason why it has that font and that color is because the browser itself has a standard for how things will look if you don't tell it otherwise.
Yeah. Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah, and CSS, I think it stands for Cascading Style Sheet. And so you have HTML, which tells you, your text, where to place things, links, buttons, that kind of thing. And then CSS tells you can specify what color links should be, what color should the background be, how much offset should some text have, that kind of stuff. So CSS makes your website makes it look prettier, or enables you to make it look more organized. Yep. So let's see. What I want to do then next is I want to add a little menu. Because over here, you can see that I have to type in I have to change the URLs. You go to micropost. So what I would like is just 2 links to enable me to go to users and then go to micropost, so that I don't have to change the URL, right? So I'm going to go to, I'm going to put that in application.html.erb. I'm going to put it there because no matter where I am on the application, I want those 2 links to show up. Right? So I'm going to put it right after the body tag, body. And then I'm going to do %equals, and then link _2. Then I'm going to call the method users _ path. So for that, I need users. That's a Ruby method link to. And what the method is saying is the first argument is what we're going to display to the user. And then the second argument is going to be the URL that when the user clicks that's the URL that we want to send them to. And I'm also going to add one for microposts. And that one's going to be microposts path. So let me refresh. And so we have, our 2 links. So I can go to users. I can go to microposts, so that I don't have to change the URL at the top anymore, right? Any questions? Want me to go back to the code?
Yeah.
So these are the 2 lines that we added, line 12 and line 13.
What is the comment that reports to the code?
The what, I'm sorry?
The comment?
Oh, after users?
Yeah.
That's, so link 2 is a method, and then we're passing it 2 parameters.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think something that is confusing, I think that might make it clear, is that you add parentheses for a
Okay.
second.
Yep.
Because that took me a second, when I was learning. So that's the same as that.
So that's what we're doing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. And so the reason that there's no parentheses is because there's a whole DSL convention, right? Like if you're dealing with DSL, which is like a domain specific language, you don't use parentheses, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So that makes it easier to understand that, oh, that's just a string that's getting passed to the method link to, and then the other thing is what, a method, right?
User's path is another method.
Yeah. That's getting passed to the.
So, I mean, we're not passing the method, but the method's being called and is returning something. And then we're passing whatever returns to the link to method.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was gonna try to make a little better looking navigation here, but I don't think I'm gonna have time. That's why I added Bootstrap. So I'll just show you, and we'll do this next time. So with Bootstrap, you can let's see, if you go to here to getting started, they have like these little templates. So you can click on the starting template. And what I wanted was like a little navigation like this. That's gonna have users here and then micro posts. And then the users and micro posts is gonna be in here. So we're gonna do that next time.
That wouldn't be too hard, like the box itself. Well, I guess that it could be an image, and then you have the links on top of that area. Wouldn't be too hard to write.
You can try doing it without Bootstrap. Bootstrap makes it really easy for us to do. So yeah, but we're gonna do that next time. Now for your submission for your project, you want to do the same thing, and you're gonna create the same app. The only difference is that instead of micro posts, you're gonna change it to pets. So we're creating an app that we're gonna be creating users, and then we're gonna be creating pets to associate with those users. So the pets, should have also a name, and like the type of animal that it is, cat, dog.
You're saying instead of microposts, we're going to do the pets and then the name or the attributes of the pet?
Well, yeah, let me.
Exactly. So the user is the owner of the pet.
Yeah. So we're gonna have a users model. So this is gonna be the same. It's still gonna have a name and an email. But the micro posts, instead of micro posts, think about just replacing the micro posts. A lot of the stuff is gonna be identical. The only difference is gonna be that instead of content, we're gonna write name for the pet's name. And then we're gonna have an additional column for the type of animal. That I would just name that column breed. Yep. And so you can put there like cat, dog, and it would also be type string.
Oh, the type of pet.
Yeah.
Oh, so no breed. Oh, I see.
Yeah, I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah, that's that.
Species, I guess. Yeah, let's do species. Yeah. And Yeah, so think about this like an exercise that now you're trying to internalize all the stuff that we went through in class. You're trying to internalize it, and then we're only adding a little kink to it by just changing a little model, and that should make it a little bit more challenging, but not not impossible, because all of this stuff is really going to be the same, right? The generating of the scaffolding is going to be the same. The only thing that's going to be changing is that when you do Rails generate scaffold micro posts, is going to be Rails generate scaffold pet. And then the association is going to be instead of has many micro posts, it's going to be has many pets. So I'm also going to give you a link to my code on GitHub for what we did in class, so you can take a look at that. Yeah. So any other questions? And this is going to be due on Tuesday, before class on Tuesday. So we still have some time to talk about it. But it would be nice. It would be good if you just started playing around with it. You don't have to finish by Saturday. And if you get stuck somewhere, we can work. We can help you get unstuck on Saturday. Any questions? The other one last thing is so also sending the class feedback. I sent it last time. I think only one person filled it out. So if you remember to fill that out, it's really helpful to know if class was too difficult, if we should slow down or speed up, or that kind of thing.
So me, and I wanted to ask the key. I think after I experienced it, I was like, okay, I think I get it. The key is just a way of opening a line of communication between Ruby and your workspace, right? The key that we saved, but
The SSH key.
yeah.
That's that's so that we can commit, or so that we can push from Cloud9 to GitHub.
It's like probably not the same way, but it's like I gave Ruby our phone number to GitHub, so we call it and give it the information it needs whenever you want to push things onto it. Otherwise, it would go out of contact it.
It would be more like a password.
Okay.
Yeah. The phone number would be more like when we do the remote, git remote add origin. That's where we're telling, here's the phone number to contact. So the key, we only did it once because it's like a password, and so that Cloud9 computer has the password to log into GitHub, and so
I mean, it's a different workspace. You would have to do password.
yeah, that's right. And then you need that remote URL. You need it for every Git repository. Like if you create a new Git repository, you need that Git URL to push to a different GitHub.
Okay.
You too. All right, so we'll see you guys later.